All right, we are now joined via Zoom by Gugu Xaba. She is the program director at Save the Children South Africa. Very good afternoon to you, Gugu. Thanks very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Good afternoon, Flo, and good afternoon, South Africa.
All right, talk to us about, your views on the safety of children in South Africa. I mean, every week, we read or hear about another terrible story regarding children and the abuse of children, and in some instances, the death of children. I mean, what are your views on this issue?
Thank you very much for that question. According to Save the Children, South Africa has done a lot in order to ensure that there is safety of children. The biggest problem I think we have right now, there's too much tolerance for violence that is occurring. It occurs in a small scale and it occurs in a big scale where we see the fatalities. Now, this says, yes, the laws are there, and we've got a strong social development that is trying to enforce and put control systems in place. But then for Save the Children, what we see is that, yes, the laws are there, but parents who are the main people that have a responsibility to support children do not know much about it. And that is why they easily tolerate violence. For instance, we abolished corporal punishment in the home, in the school setting, but we still have almost, I would say, more than 80% of parents that still believe it's important to punish using the stick, let alone the emotional abuse that is happening around children, let alone the physical fights that are in home settings. Because when children observe violence, they learn that that is the right way of solving a problem. So we have a lot of education that needs to be done for parents so that they're ready to parent appropriately, for the communities that we are living in, because if our communities do not tolerate violence, then we have a likelihood that we can be able to deal with small communities before you even go to bigger communities. Then the other thing, the law is slow, and you and I know that we talk about the law that has a long arm. It takes too long to even discipline the predators of violence against children, which leads to some of the deaths. So we have a systemic problem from the point of the parent to the point of the law. And so it means we need to change the way we're doing things. And for us as Save the Children, let's start at a parenting level. Let's engage communities. Let's not tolerate violence at that level so that the law follows what community leadership is driving. So that's basically how we see it as Save the Children. Thank you.
I mean, would you say that, we're seeing a steady rise in violence against children, or a matter of it being reported more? I mean, my friends who are in, the legal fraternity who work with children will argue that this is nothing new. We have seen so many of these particular cases, but it does seem as though there is a lot more reporting when it comes to these particular cases. Which one is it? Is there, though, a concerning rise when it comes to the abuse of children? I mean, we're also hearing about parents themselves being involved, in this abuse of children, as you rightly mentioned. I've said it before, we reported on the father who poisoned, all of his children, his 4 children, and of course 3 of them are dying. I mean, what are the contributing factors to such incidents as well?
Okay, thank you for the question, Flo. It's a bit of both. We have educated some communities such that there is an increase in reporting of violence as it occurs. But now, remember, we've got the biggest problems we have as a society, which is poverty. As soon as poverty starts rising, you are facing a society that is under strain. And that strain, or the toxicity of poverty, makes people to be unhappy, which leads to violence against each other. And then the other one is South Africa right now is reporting 35% of unemployment. That again is telling you that there is a strain that may lead to violence within the home setting, including the inequalities. And so at some point you will see a bubbling of violence in some particular areas. And then if you dig deeper, you will realize that there are these vulnerabilities that lead to that. And we also have another problem that we have is we've got high migration currently. And where there is children that are uncared for, then you have a likelihood of violence occurring in that platform. So we've got different contributory factors that as a community we need to deal with so that we can be able to assist government to be able to control, to put control in place and have responsible places that are taking care of children. Where an adult is under pressure, we need to help them to be able to deal with the source of the problem and not to be violent. So that's basically how we're dealing with it now.
Yeah, and it's also quite alarming, if you look at the fact that there are many children on the streets, and that lends itself to, other problems linked to it. I think that, it even increases the chances of being abused if, you're not, in a home. We see, many factors at play as well, including the issue of substance abuse. But I also think it's quite concerning that many have become, quite desensitized to the issue. We see children begging on the streets, and it's just become like a norm in our country, in our society. And I wonder, is there anything being done about it? Because it seems as though it's something that we're, looking away and just sort of accepting, really.
There's a lot that is being done, Flo. For us as Save the Children, the biggest problem is poor contribution of community leadership of different households. Because let's take an example of the children in the streets. Some of the children in the streets are with parents. Right now, we have even discovered the fact that some of those parents do not own those children. Instead, those children are used as pawns to get people to feel pity and give them something. So it has even become a business. So it means our communities are so tolerant because at times, as Save the Children, we go into those corners where you find those parents. We take them to social development. A day or two later, they're back in the same place. So it means our laws need to be stronger in terms of not tolerating it and disciplining such people. In that way, when everybody is not tolerating it, we will be able to make a difference around it. And the fact that we've got so much unemployment, people then come back and say, but I'm unemployed. How do you expect me not to go to the street or to take my children to the street? So the law must come in and protect the child by teaching the parent what is right and making sure that those children can be placed in foster care or something if the parent cannot be able to take care of them.
All right. Thanks very much for giving us your time and your input here on SABC News. Many thanks to you, Gugu Xaba.
Thank you.